Within just 3 years of marriage, this so-called fairy girl cheated at least 5 times. Her husband's repeated forgiveness only made her push further and further. On the surface, she apologized endlessly, swearing there would never be a next time. But the moment she turned around, she was back in bars, chasing pleasure. Believing she had finally found her true soulmate, she decisively divorced her husband to pursue her happiness, only to be heartlessly abandoned in the end. Now, she has brought in a mediator, hoping to take her son back and use him as security for her old age.
那个男的不要他了，那个男的还在我发信息那里，我这里还有那个男的信息。他中途出了5次轨，我原谅他4次，这一次我不能原谅他。
In front of the mediator, the fairy girl insists that her ex-husband was her first love. They started dating at the age of 15 and eventually got married. At first, their life together was happy and peaceful. But after she gave birth to their son, she claims her husband stopped working, even committed domestic violence against her, and wanted this fragile woman to go out and earn money herself. She also accuses him of cheating on her with other women. Now, she says she only wants to take her pitiful child and escape this hateful family. With righteous indignation, she brings the mediator straight to her ex-husband's home, and, upon seeing her former parents-in-law, immediately declares,
然后我作为一个妈妈，我想让我的儿子有更好的教育，有更好的一些良品方面的丰他以后的路，我想让他好走一点，哪怕我是单亲妈妈。
Hearing this, the father-in-law becomes furious. First of all, he makes one thing absolutely clear. The so-called husband cheating she talks about. How long have you been divorced already? If he finds a girlfriend after the divorce, how is that cheating? He then states that a woman like this has no right to raise a child properly. Their family never mistreated her, and never once stopped her from visiting the child. What's more, she was properly married into their family, with full bride price paid, not a cent missing. Yet within just 3 years of marriage, she was caught cheating at least 5 times. Where does she get the nerve now to come and demand the child?
那为什么要把孩子带走呢？
他说的是他为了让孩子接受更好的教育。对，
那你们认为他有没有那个道理带他孩子呢？
肯定有啊。
你凭什么？你到底在哪个地方呢？
那如果这样子的话，如果你们说不愿意给我儿子，那你们就可以还我的继承费。
The parents-in-law tell the mediator that their son and this fairy girl were first loves. They got together when they were very young, and often messed around secretly in their room. Later, however, the woman fell for another man and broke up with their son. A few years later, their son fell in love with someone else and was already discussing marriage. At that point, the fairy girl suddenly returned and forcibly inserted herself back into his life. Not long after, she claimed she was pregnant and demanded that their son take responsibility. Seeing that the woman was already pregnant and wanting to be responsible, the father of the Wang family made his son cut ties with his current girlfriend and personally went to apologize.
后来呢，我叫我儿子不要去凶害那个女，你要过去到广东，你要给他解释掉，太远了。 我们不能害你们。
Not long after, the bride price was paid, and a grand wedding was held. The fairy girl was married into the family in style, but in the end, she took the bride price, took the wedding money, yet refused no matter what to register the marriage legally. As they spoke, the Wang family parents pulled out a photo on their phone. The man in the photo was their son, Wang Yu. Not long ago, he had obtained detailed evidence of his wife's infidelity, which triggered the fairy girl's extreme behavior.
这是他谋杀我儿子。
谋杀为什么会用这个词啊？
这是他说，我还没有告他，我谋杀亲夫。他在外面有了别人回来家里就开始谋杀亲夫，那是在后面
掐他的手，
掐那个叫脖子，抓2次。
Soon after, the ex-husband Wang Yu returned home from work. The mediator noticed that he had a mild temperament, completely different from the violent abuser described by the fairy girl. His clothes also didn't look like someone who never worked. Once the mediator began to doubt her story, the fairy girl suddenly became emotional. From Wang Yu, the mediator learned the truth. The period she called not working was when he had been in a car accident and could barely walk. As for the alleged domestic violence, according to the fairy girl herself, it supposedly happened during that same time.
说你在这个家，你老公怎么对你不好了？打人了？你打过他吗？
对啊，
我想清楚。
你看他那个样子，我打得着他吗？他在外面跟着那个男的不要他了。这个九月份我才发现的，他跟那个男的在一起1年多了，然后那个男的回来了，不要他了，就这样。
The ex-husband states clearly that he never laid a hand on her. Instead, he says his wife has some mental health issues. This is not an insult. There are actual hospital medical records. But that's not the most shocking part. What matters most is that his wife is only 22 years old. They've been married for less than 3 years. And yet she has been involved with at least 5 different men.
中途出了5次轨，原谅他4次，这一次我不能原谅他。那你要跟外面过，你就跟外面过了，我们就分手了，不愿这样子闹下去。但是他还要来这里，
你看我没有说过，
看一下，
真的是你们总是冤枉人。
The ex-husband believes she only came back for the child because her affair partner no longer wanted her. The mediator expresses disbelief and turns to the fairy girl, asking whether this is slander.
小鹏，你过来一下，小鹏，
走了。
你过来一下。他们这个是不是污蔑你，或者是怎么呢？哪个？就是他们找到了那个男的给你发的短信。
你这些东西我不会朋友的，因为这些东西我不知道这个人是谁，我根本就不认识。
那你还有其他吗？
还有他的命，他以前用的命。
At this moment, the ex-husband finally sees reality clearly. This woman was never here to mediate at all. He sits quietly to the side, his eyes glistening with tears. Looking back on this relationship, he realizes he had indulged her in everything. Even after so many affairs, he chose forgiveness again and again, hoping only for family harmony. But how did it end up like this? Now, he has no expectations left. He only hopes she will stop making trouble and agree to a peaceful separation. After the mediation, the devastated ex-husband speaks privately with the mediator. He wants to try reasoning things out first. He explains that after marriage, to give his wife a better life, he worked in a factory during the day and delivered food at night. Later, he had a car accident. During his recovery, he never forced his wife to go out and work. It was during that period that she began cheating. Later still, he discovered she had mental health issues. But treatment was impossible. Even the attending doctor couldn't reason with her.
主治给他找了一个心理医生，结果心理医生呢还是没说赢他，因为他那个很会说的，就是他娘家的时候也是说我作为一个男人老是对他骂呀打呀那些什么，但是我从来都没有碰过打他。
The mediator then arranged for everyone to sit down and negotiate. But the fairy girl continued hurling insults nonstop. Meanwhile, her family accused the husband's family, claiming they must have driven their daughter insane. The ex-husband no longer wanted to argue. He told the mediator that he hoped her illness could be treated first, and only then would mediation make sense. He was willing to cover all treatment costs. If she wanted to come back after recovery, he would fulfill his duties as a husband. If she didn't, he only wished they could part peacefully. Honestly, stories like this make people stop believing in love and start believing in damage control. You watch it unfold and you can't help thinking, gosh, how did it get this far? A young marriage, a man bending himself into knots, forgiving again and again, working day and night, surviving an accident, still trying to hold a family together. And on the other side, someone who treats marriage less like a commitment and more like a revolving door. Walk out when it's boring, walk back in when it's convenient. You know what really hits a nerve? It's not just the cheating. It's the pattern. Apologize beautifully, swear there will be no next time, cry a little, say all the right words, and then turn around and do it again. Bars, new men, new excitement. And when that so-called true love doesn't work out, suddenly the old family becomes a safety net again. The child becomes leverage. The past becomes something to rewrite. Imagine that, rewriting reality with tears and accusations, hoping people will forget what actually happened. And this is where a lot of people start talking about a deeper problem. In some relationships today, love isn't love anymore. It's a transaction. Some women don't see a husband as a partner, but as a tool. A walking ATM. Backup plan. Someone to pay the bride price, pay the bills, raise the child, clean up the mess, and absorb endless emotional chaos. As long as the man provides, he's good. The moment he's injured, struggling, or inconvenient, he's suddenly useless, abusive, or not trying hard enough. What's even more exhausting is the moral packaging. Everything gets wrapped in noble language. For the child's education, for better values, for a better future. It all sounds so righteous, so touching, until you notice that the logic only works when it benefits one person. When asked for real reasons, the mask slips. No, child. Then fine, pay me emotional compensation. Love disappears instantly, replaced by price tags and demands. And let's talk about betrayal, because betrayal isn't just sleeping with someone else. Betrayal is lying until lying feels normal. It's turning forgiveness into weakness and then exploiting it. It's watching someone give you chance after chance and thinking, how cool is that? I can push a little further. It's knowing someone's limits and stepping over them anyway, because you believe there will always be another apology waiting. The saddest part, men like this often blame themselves. They think if they work harder, endure more, stay quieter, things will improve. They confuse tolerance with responsibility. They confuse love with sacrifice. By the time they finally wake up, they're emotionally bankrupt, sitting there with red eyes, asking themselves how a marriage turned into a battlefield and a child turned into a bargaining chip. This isn't about attacking all women, and it's definitely not about excusing bad men. But pretending this pattern doesn't exist helps no one. When greed dresses itself up as independence, when selfishness hides behind victimhood, and when money replaces empathy, relationships rot from the inside. Marriage becomes a game of extraction, not connection. At the end of the day, real love doesn't need constant forgiveness to survive, and it definitely doesn't need manipulation to function. If someone only comes back when they have nowhere else to go, that's not love, that's survival instinct. And using a child as insurance for old age? That's not motherhood, that's calculation. Maybe the most honest thing this man said was that he just wanted peace. No drama, no revenge, no shouting, just an end. Sometimes, after everything, peace is the last thing love can still offer.